Greetings, Inland Empire, and welcome to another edition of Political Empire, your source for all of the latest political news happening in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. I'm your host, Kim Pierceall, with the Press Enterprise and PE.com, and we've got quite the show today for you. We're going to be talking a little bit about Canada Day and how Riverside County rung that occasion in. Also, trustees and the efforts to create trustee districts within some of the school districts in the area. And Boundry Bingo. There are two cities, two of the largest cities in the Inland Empire, that are right now retabulating their boundaries for their voting districts. And also, we're going to talk to our correspondent in Washington, D.C. about the healthcare decision and what it means politically. And then finally, we're going to talk about, in Sacramento, quite a few polls that are being done to gauge how folks are feeling about the current proposal for the budget. And also, we're going to talk about the San Bernardino County Civil Grand Jury Report and what they told San Bernardino County to do. So first off, we're going to talk a little bit about headlines. Oh, Canada. At the urging of Riverside County's Board of Supervisors, who asked each of the county's 28 cities to declare July 1st Canada Day, it was Canada Day and Canada Day that day as well. Banning flew the Northern Neighbors flag on July 2nd. Riverside County's long cheered their trade relationship with the region, and the residents of Canada have long loved living and vacating in Palm Springs when winter hits up north. So yes, we celebrated Canada Day prior to our July 4th holiday that we just had. Trustee Try. Riverside's Unified School District is in the midst of creating trustee districts right now. It's a move aimed at improving minority representation on the school district's board. It's a similar move that dozens of other districts across the state have done to avoid lawsuits that might arise as a result of the California Voting Rights Act. Corona and Norco, though, they're not doing it. Minorities make up the majority of the Corona-Norco Unified School District, but only one Latino has served on the board, and that was in the 1960s and 1970s. Boundary Bingo, the area's two largest cities, Riverside and San Bernardino, are both in the throes of redistricting. We'll be catching up with our reporters soon to find out what goes on with those proposed boundaries and how it's sitting with local leaders and residents. And we'll be right back to talk with our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Ben Goad, about the important healthcare decision that occurred last week. The Supreme Court decided last week to uphold President Obama's healthcare initiative, and it's still the hot topic of conversation. We turn from the healthcare impacts themselves to the political ramifications. Ben Goad in Washington, D.C. was there when the decision came down, getting a reaction from inland lawmakers. Ben, what does this mean for the November election?
Well, Kim, that really depends on who you ask. Democrats are saying that this is a huge victory that boosts their chances to pick up seats in the House, keep control of the Senate, and win the White House in November. Basically, what they're saying is the court and its conservative Chief Justice, John Roberts, validated the president's signature initiative. But Republicans, on the other hand, are saying that the court simply ruled that the health care law is constitutional, not that it's a good law. In its opinion, the court said, and I'll quote here, "We do not consider whether the acting body has sound policies. That judgment is entrusted to the nation's elected leaders," end quote. So, Republicans who want to repeal the law say it's up to the voters to decide whether it's a good policy. If not, they said, voters should just vote Democrats out of office. I talked to Congressman Ken Calvert right after the ruling came down. He said he thought the election, at least in part, would be a referendum on the healthcare ruling.
Well, and curious, too, because that day I spoke with UC Riverside poli-sci professor John Chaffee, and he said the decision could also have a far-reaching impact on Congress's power to set social laws using its powers under the Commerce Clause. And there's been a lot said about how this was approved as a tax, but it wasn't approved as powers under the Commerce Clause. He said, the professor said, it's, quote, "It's clear the conservatives on the court want to shrink that power." What did this do to the Commerce Clause based on how Roberts ruled and how the rest of the court ruled?
Right. Well, I think what he's talking about is, the government had argued that Congress has the authority to require all individuals to have health insurance under the Commerce Clause. That's the clause in the Constitution that says basically Congress can regulate interstate commerce and business and that sort of thing. So there's a whole bunch of federal laws that rest on that particular clause. And what Roberts and the other conservative justices said was that the health care mandate is not constitutional under the Commerce Clause, but it could still, as you said, fly as a tax. So There's some now who are speculating that the court could strike down other either current or future federal laws that rely on the Commerce Clause. And I think that's what Chaffee is talking about when he says shrinking the power.
Now, it's been an extremely busy week in D.C. There were other Supreme Court decisions, and in the midst of all of this, there was the action regarding Attorney General Eric Holder and how Congress found him in contempt. Tell us a little bit about what happened there, because it sounds like apparently one of our local congressmen may have walked out as the votes were taking place to indeed hold Eric Holder in contempt for what's been going on with the investigation in Fast and Furious. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. And this happened on the same day as the healthcare ruling on Thursday, so it was quite a dramatic day. And maybe about 3 hours after the ruling came down, maybe a little longer than that, the House did approve a resolution finding Holder in contempt for failing to release documents related to Fast and Furious. During the vote, a number of Democrats, more than 100, walked out of the chamber as a show of contempt, I guess, for the House, saying that this was an embarrassing vote that was political and it wasn't a real policy type vote. And among the 108 was Joe Baca, who stormed out, and he put out a statement later saying that that's why he did, because he thought it was an embarrassment. Interestingly, about 12, I think, Democrats voted in favor of the contempt vote, which was supported by the NRA and the National Rifle Association, and they had pressured Democrats who they had given money to in the past to vote in favor of it. Baca, who has received some of that money in the past, went ahead and voted, did not vote anyway, so did not, the pressure didn't get to him, I suppose, but he did walk out, the vote passed, and go on from there.
Interesting. So contempt for the contempt vote by quite a few Democrats in Congress. But like you said, yeah, still went through. Well, Ben, thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm sure you're going to be keeping busy in D.C. Considering so much has been going on. So thanks so much.
You bet.
And now we're going to be joined by our correspondent in Sacramento, Jim Miller. Now to Sacramento with our correspondent Jim Miller, who is going to tell us a little bit about what's going on in the state, because lawmakers are hurrying to tie up some loose ends before they head off for their months-long summer recess this Friday. They passed legislation Monday that's meant to improve the foreclosure process, and new field polls show what people really think about what's going on with the new state budget and also tax increase measures that are going to be on the November ballot. Jim Miller, our Sacramento correspondent, is here today. Jim, thanks so much.
Sure. Hi, Jim.
What do people think of the state budget that was passed last week?
Well, they are of mixed minds, according to the field poll that became public yesterday, Wednesday. 37% think the cuts went too far, 28% felt they did not go far enough, and then 24% thought the level of cuts was about right. The budget is for the year that began last Sunday, July 1st, and a key part of it is Governor Brown's November tax increase measure, which is supposed to raise about $5.6 billion for the general fund in 2012-13. But if it fails, the plan calls for about $6 billion in automatic trigger cuts. And according to the field poll, 72% of voters think that's a really bad idea.
Well, and speaking of the governor's tax measure, there is a poll out that focuses just on that tax increase. How do folks feel about that?
Right. Yeah, that became public today, Thursday, and it shows that 54% of likely November voters support the governor's tax measure, 38% would vote no, and 8% have no opinion. That's pretty much unchanged from May, and a significantly greater yes-no margin than two other tax increase measures that have qualified for the November ballot. But there's a big but, and that is that about a fifth of the yes voters, or about a fifth of the voters who say they would support the governor's tax plan would be less likely to do so if the legislature acts on Brown's request to allocate money for high-speed rail. That's the project that was approved by voters in 2008, but which a lot of voters have soured on.
So it sounds like good news for Governor Brown based on this poll, but that's only if the high-speed rail plan does not go through. So when is the legislature likely to take up that high-speed rail initiative?
It could happen as soon as today. Legislative leaders want to act before lawmakers leave town, so stay tuned.
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. Jim, thanks so much, as always, for joining us from Sacramento, and we'll talk to you soon, obviously, about all of these issues that are going on. So thanks so much.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Great. And now we're going to go to a clip with our correspondent from San Bernardino County, Imran Gori, who talked a little bit about the civil grand jury decisions related to San Bernardino County with our correspondent, Jackie.
Hello, I'm Jackie West, and joining me is reporter Imran Gori. And today we are talking about the San Bernardino County Grand Jury, and its annual report just released last week commented on a November initiative that would reduce county supervisors' pay. Can you tell us a little bit about what this measure means and what it would mean if it was approved?
Sure. In March, a group of county employee unions collected enough signatures to place this initiative on the November ballot. It would cut supervisors' pay and staff if approved. Supervisors now earn about $150,000 a year. This would reduce their total compensation to $60,000 a year.
Okay. So what was the grand jury's finding?
Well, they looked at other counties, comparable counties in size and population, and found that San Bernardino County is at a comparable level. They also recommended that the county do a statewide survey.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for joining us and for breaking that down for us. Of course, you can always stay up to date on all the news on PE.com. For the Press Enterprise and PE.com, I'm Jackie West.
Thanks again to all of our correspondents who joined us today to give us an update on what's going on in the Inland Empire. And thanks to you for watching yet another edition of Political Empire. Keep reading PE.com and the Press Enterprise every day for the latest news of what's going on here in Riverside County and San Bernardino counties.